Hello, welcome back guys to another video. This time about my World Cup round of 32 predictions. We had some exciting clashes coming up, so I will be talking about this and I will be going through my predictions. So yeah, and you're gonna want to stay until the end because I might have some upsets in this prediction video, which would be insane. So yeah, so let's start off. So let's get right into it. So let's start off with the first game, Canada against South Africa. So we're gonna start with Canada off, and the World Cup started off with a 1-1 draw to Bosnia, and then they absolutely slapped the hell out of Qatar, 6 goals to 0. But that was not the case because Ismail Kone got injured, and, and he had to be like stretchered off the field, and it was a serious injury. He a leg break, and yeah, prayers to Kone. He's okay, but that was a scary image from the World Cup. But then they lost to Switzerland 2 goals to 1, and I correctly predicted that score when I posted that on my YouTube account. So yeah, Canada have some great players like Alfonso Davis. He hasn't played yet, but I'm pretty sure he'll play the next round now that he's fit. Jonathan David, Promise David, Kyle Larin, Tejan Buchanan, Ismail Kone, but yeah, he's injured sadly. Uh, uh, Jacob Schaffelberg, etc. I think Canada have a good team, and they could even beat South Africa. Okay, now moving on to South Africa, which they are the dark horses of this tournament, and I correctly predicted them to finish second in their group, just behind Mexico, the hosts, which they did. Well, the World Cup started off not great because they first they lost to Mexico 2 goals to 0, and they got 2 players sent off, which was which was bad for them. Because of course they're playing 9 against 11, but Mexico also got a red card in the final minutes of the game. So yeah, there were more red cards than goals in that game. But then in the second game, they did sort of wake up. Well, the first half wasn't that great against Czech Republic. They were down 1-0, and then in the second half they did wake up and even scored their first World Cup goal since 2010, where they hosted that World Cup, by the way. Then in the next game, I actually predicted South Africa to win. I predicted them to win 2-1, but I did predict that correct, because I did predict South Africa to win, but it didn't. It wasn't 2-1. It was 1 goal to 0 by South Africa, and South Africa, they're the dark horses. Of course, I don't know many of their players, but I do know the guy who plays for Burnley and a lot of other players that play for Mamelodi Sundowns, a team in South Africa, which they're quite good. They even won the AF the Champions League. If you don't know what the CAF Champions League is, the CAF Champions League is like the UEFA Champions League of Africa. Okay, now moving on to my final prediction of this game. I would say this is the most difficult game to predict because they are both really good teams. They're both underrated teams, Canada and South Africa. But Canada, I know they beat Qatar 6-0, but Qatar were just playing with 9 men, and Qatar were playing with 11, so that was of course going to be a total destruction. But Canada, in their games, they just seem to struggle at recent times as well as South Africa. I can honestly see this game going into penalties as a 0-0 draw. Who would win on penalties? South Africa are just better at penalties, and I think my first upset of the video, South Africa to go through and beat Canada. If Canada were playing in BC Place in Vancouver or in Montreal, I would say they're going through, but they're playing in in Los Angeles. So I think South Africa are gonna pull off the upset and go through. Now moving on to these next 2 games are actually insane games. We got the Netherlands taking on Morocco. Now starting off with the Netherlands, the World Cup started off with in a great game against Japan where they tied 2-2. What a game that was to watch. Uh, yeah, I know I said 2-1 to the Netherlands because Japan were like suffering from some injuries, but that continued. And the Netherlands, they are a good team because after that 2-2 draw, they absolutely destroyed the hell of Sweden 5 goals to 1. That was probably, arguably, that was the best performance by far in this World Cup. And they have some key players shining at the World Cup, such as Somerville. He's been an insane wonder kid. Who else? Virgil van Dijk, Cody Gakpo, Brian Brobby, Denzel Dumfries, uh, Frankie De Jong, Ryan Gravenberch, Tijani Reinders, Mickey van der Ven. Damn, they have a good team, the Dutch. They have a really good team. But can they beat the dark horse in Morocco? Because after that game, they beat Tunisia 3-1, as expected. And the Netherlands have they have some good players, actually. Like I just said them. And the Netherlands, I think that they could here pull off a surprise against Morocco. But it's just, again, it's another tight game. Just like it is the South Africa versus Canada game. So, uh, now moving on to Morocco, which they did receive a ton of hate after they won the AFCON. Well, let's just say they won it because Senegal walked off the field, and they were heading into the tournament with that drama. They became one of the most loved national teams to now they're like one of the most hated ones. I have no hate with Morocco at all. You just have to you gotta respect Morocco because they became the first African nation to reach the semifinals of a tournament. You just gotta respect that. You cannot hate on Morocco, to be honest. And I'm not even Moroccan. Yeah. So uh, I think that this game is gonna be very interesting because Morocco, their first game against Brazil, that was expected to be a one hell of a game, but Morocco actually performed well in that game against Brazil. After first scored a goal, Ismail Saibari, and then Vinicius Junior equalized, and the game finished 1 goal to 1. That was a good game, to be honest, but then the performance against Scotland was just even better. I think they deserve to win by more. They only won 1-0 thanks to a goal again from Ismail Saibari, who's been playing really well this tournament. He scored in all 3 games. But then the game against Haiti, well, I didn't watch the game, but I did see the highlights, and I have to be honest, that game was the best game of match day 3 so far. So far, yeah, that was the best game of match day 3. Because at the time I'm recording this because there have only been 3 knockout stage uh, round of 32 games released. So yeah, I'll do my next videos soon. So yeah, I think that Morocco have a good team and they beat Haiti 4-2. Well, Haiti actually pulled off a good fight against them, but Morocco ended up winning. Well, fair play to Haiti. Wilson Isidore, what a goal that was. When I was watching the highlights of that game, I decided to watch the Brazil game instead, but those highlights were peak, to be honest. Yeah. Yeah, now moving on, Morocco, or they have some good players. They've improved a lot since that 2022 uh, underdog story. Uh, of course, they have the best right back in the world, Ashraf Hakimi, uh, Bouadi, who plays for Lille, and he's like the next wonder kid, the next midfield wonder kid. Uh, Ayoub El Kabi, Ismail Saibari, uh, Bilal El Kanous. Yassine Bono in goal, he's insane. Chadi Riyad, Brahim Diaz, of course, he's really good as well. And yeah, etc. Morocco have a good team, but can they beat the Netherlands? Well, I think they will. I think Morocco are gonna beat the Netherlands, and because they have a good team. I got Morocco winning against the Netherlands because the Netherlands, they have to face someone good. Like, I know they faced Japan, and they did struggle in that game. I think they're going to struggle as well against Morocco. And I think Morocco are going to beat the Netherlands and go through to the next round. As my second upset of the video is getting crazy, I know. But the next game is way more interesting than this one. The next game, we have another interesting game. We got Brazil taking on Japan. Oof, what a game that is. What a game that is. Can Japan beat Brazil? That would be insane if that happens. Dang. It will be played at Houston. What a game that's gonna be. I cannot wait. What, what a game. So, Brazil. So they started off in the tournament. Of course, 1-1 draw to Morocco. I already said that, but their next two performances were absolutely exceptional. Uh, they then they beat Haiti 3 goals to 0, but my boy Rafinha got injured. So sad. Like, why does he keep getting injured on this hamstring, man? Is it a curse? Like, why does he keep getting injured? And then they beat Scotland 3-0 after Vinny Jr. is absolutely cooking this World Cup. Maybe he's actually playing well under Ancelotti. Yeah. But now, Brazil, they are absolutely stacked in the attack and midfield. I would say their weakest position is the fullbacks. I know. So, yeah, of course, they have like great players like Alisson, Vinicius Jr., Rafinha, who's sadly injured. Sad. Mateus Cunha, Igor Thiago, Endrick, Neymar. Neymar, he's back. He's finally back. I'm so happy to see Neymar back. He even got a shot on target in that game against Scotland, which is good because he was injured for a while and then he came back and got a shot on target. Of course, they have some great players. Uh, uh, Also, Ryan, Lucas Paqueta, Bruno Guimaraes, Casemiro, Marquinhos, Gabriel, Wesley. Yeah, I think they have some great players, Brazil. And could they beat Japan? But now, moving on to Japan, of course, they tied 2-2 to the Netherlands, as I previously mentioned. But then they beat Tunisia. Yeah, they beat Tunisia 4-0 really convincingly. That was a great performance by Japan. I think that they deserve to win there. And yeah. And then they tied 1-1 to Sweden, which, by the way, was also a good game in the second half. The first half was a snooze fest, to be honest. Yeah, I don't know why this World Cup, the first half are like snooze fests, and the second half are really good. But an exception game for the first half, really being good, was the England Croatia game. Oof, what a game that is! The England Croatia game has been the best World Cup game so far. So yeah, and Japan, they have some really good players. Takekubo, but he got injured. They said he was gonna be out for 3 weeks. But unless if Japan make a dark horse run in this tournament, he could recover just on time if they reach at least the quarterfinals. Well, then also some good players like uh, Ayase Ueda. He's a really good striker. Uh, Daichi Kamada, Nakamura, Ao Tanaka. Uh, who else? The two Ito guys and Suzuki in goal. He's a really good goalkeeper. And yeah, Japan have some great players, but they have some injury issues like Mitoma, Minamino, and Endo. They're all ruled out for the tournament. But Japan could make a dark horse run here. But who will win, Brazil or Japan? Well, in the previous game, I've got to say my score prediction from Brazil Morocco for Morocco against Netherlands. I think Morocco will win that game 3 goals to 2. But for this game, it's also very tight. I do not want to see both nations get knocked out early. I really like Japan, but I also like Brazil, and just a tiny bit. I like Rafinha and Neymar. So who will win this game? I just think I'm gonna have to lean over to Brazil. Just just I think Brazil will win this game, but very, very slightly. I think they're going to win this game 2 goals to 1 and move on to the next round because Japan, they do have a curse that they do get knocked out. After they get out of the group stages, they instantly get knocked out. So I think that curse will sadly continue, and I think Brazil are gonna eliminate them. Japan just got unlucky with the draw, but I think Japan will pull off a really good fight against Brazil. I think they're also gonna score first, but I think Brazil are just gonna win, and yeah. All right, now moving on to our next prediction. Moving on to our next game, we got the USA taking on Bosnia and Herzegovina. Wow, what a game that is gonna. I mean, not what a game is gonna be, but it will be fun to see Esmir Bajaketovic. I don't know, I completely whiffed on my pronunciation. Take on the country he was born in. That Esmir Bajaketovic guy was actually born in Wisconsin, USA, which will be nice to see. Well, and yeah, the USA, starting off with the USA, they are absolutely playing, absolutely, they're playing like prime PSG right now. They're playing like prime PSG and Barcelona combined because in their kickoff tactic, they always kick the ball forward, just like PSG. So, yeah, uh, USA, they were playing absolutely insane. In the first game against Paraguay, they absolutely clapped them 4-1. That was the best performance by USA I've ever seen in a really long time. What a performance that was. Even Gio Reyna, everyone's calling him finished. He is not finished at all. He's a great player he is a great prospect for the US. And yeah, and and they also then they beat Australia before Australia was talking smack about him, saying that they were really trash, and then how USA hated them and they were gonna win that game by revenge. So I think that was a good, also a great performance by USA. They dominated that game as well. But in their final game against Turkey, uh, of course they had to play their B team because they already topped the group, and Turkey won that game 3-2. But fair play to Turkey for winning their first World Cup game so far, and fair play to them for also scoring goals after they've been a complete disappointment. But USA, they're playing absolutely exceptional. They have some, they have insane players. They have some great players like Christian Pulisic, Florian Balogun, Weston McKennie, Gio Reyna, Timothy Weah, uh, Jedi Robinson. If you're wondering why they call him Jedi, it's because I figured out that he loves Star Wars just like me. I wonder what his favorite Star Wars movie is. What else? Uh, some some others like yeah. For Alex Freeman is a really good, exciting prospect for the US, and yeah. Now on the bench, of course, they have some great options like Tyler Adams, Malik Tiedemann, etc. I think they have some good selections on the bench, and I think that they could beat Bosnia pretty convincingly here. Now Bosnia and Herzegovina, well, their World Cup campaign didn't start off the best. Well, at least they did get a 1-1 draw against Canada, but then they got absolutely smoked by Switzerland, 4-1. And yeah, so, uh, but then Bosnia had to beat Qatar. Of course, they beat Qatar 3-1 to secure a path to the round of 32, making their first knockout appearance in a major tournament. Wow, you'd love to see it. I thought Bosnia would have finished second in their group, but instead it was Canada. Bosnia, they have some good players. Like they do have some hidden gems, like Esmir Bajak Terkovic, like I previously mentioned. Of course, the captain Edin Dzeko, uh, Sad Kolasinac, uh, Amir Dedic, etc. I think they have some good young talent that could be used. But if Bosnia drew a different team, uh, I would have said they could have won. But this time they drew the United States. I could have said Bosnia were gonna win, but the way USA are playing right now, I just think USA are gonna win this game. I really think USA are gonna win this game. And I think they're going to win pretty convincingly because they have a really good team. I think they're going to beat Bosnia and Herzegovina 3-1. Yep, that's my final prediction. Bosnia will also pull off a good fight, but I sadly got them eliminated in the round of 32. Now, and I got the USA advancing to the next round. So yeah, now moving on to our next prediction. Okay, now moving on to Ivory Coast versus Norway. So okay, this just might be the toughest game to predict in the whole of the knockouts. So Ivory Coast, let's start off with Ivory Coast. Like they've been playing really well. And yeah, They started off with a win against Ecuador by Amad Diallo scoring a goal in the last minute, 90th minute. And then they played Germany, where they unfortunately lost 2 goals to 1. But then I feel really bad there for Ivory Coast. They deserve to at least get 1 point against Germany. But then of course they had to be Curaçao in the final game. But massive respect to Curaçao though, because they even scored their first World Cup goal against Germany, against Manuel Neuer, and they got a point against Ecuador, which is just impressive. But this game is so hard to predict. But Ivory Coast have like they have a really good attack, and a really good defense. The only thing that concerns me about them is the defense. But they have some good defenders. They're like a Wilfred Singo, and yeah, but their attack is just insane. Like there's like Nicolas Pepe, Yan Diomande, Amad Diallo, Johan Boni, Frank Kessié, Simon Adingra, etc. I think the Ivorians have a good team that 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 are good underdogs. But can they beat Norway, which they are the dark horses of the tournament? Norway, they started off the World Cup by thrashing Iraq 4-1. Well, respect to Iraq, because they scored their first ever World Cup goal. And then Norway, I thought they were gonna lose to Senegal. Well, it turns out I was wrong. Senegal lost them 3-2, but which was a really good game to watch. But although they lost 4-1 to France today, although they lost 4-1 to France, I was really expecting a really good game. I'd say Haaland versus Mbappe, but Haaland didn't play. I don't know why, but that was a really good game to watch as well. France versus Norway, even Doué getting his first World Cup goal. But yeah, so what do I think of my final prediction? This might be just the closest one, the closest game to predict, because both teams leak in some goals, and they both have great attacks. So I honestly see this game a high scoring game. So I'm gonna say it's gonna finish 3-3. Yes, I'm going for an insane game to finish 3-3, and on penalties. Usually Ivory Coast gets the better on penalties, but Norway, they have previous experience by beating an African team, Senegal, and I think their experience will continue. So sadly for Ivory Coast, I got Norway beating Ivory Coast and advancing to the round of 16. So yeah, Ivory Coast are just gonna miss out. I really do feel bad for them, but I think Norway just got through. So yeah, now moving on to our next prediction. Okay, now moving on to Argentina against Cabo Verde. So starting off with Argentina. Okay, now Lionel Messi has been absolutely carrying this side. They just won. They won. They won their first game against Austria. Algeria 3 goals to 0. Messi scoring a hat trick. Yep, Messi is the goat. He's the absolute goat. Who else? And then they beat Austria 2 goals to 0 after Messi scoring 2 goals. And Messi just carrying its Argentina's team. Messi just so good. That's why he's the goat. He might even win the Ballon d'Or if Argentina win the World Cup back to back. That would just be crazy. Now Cabo Verde, massive fair play to them for getting second in their group after Uruguay. And they did that without winning a single game. Yes, they tied all of their games in the World Cup. So first, they started off strong. They tied 0-0 with Spain after Bozinha playing a masterclass in that game. And then in the second game against Uruguay, I predicted them to win 2-1. And my prediction was actually close after they took the lead 1 goal to 0 after they scored an incredible free kick. But then Uruguay turned it around 2-1, and then and then Cabo Verde scored, and they tied the game and earned a point. Then they just had to not draw points against Saudi Arabia, and that's exactly what they did. They tied 0-0. So yeah, that, that's how that's how the game ended. So I think that Cabo Verde, they are the underdogs of this tournament, just like I predicted. But they have to play a big team in Argentina. And you know what? Cabo Verde could pull off a really good fight against them, because they pulled off a great fight against Spain. They also pulled off a great fight against Uruguay, against two World Cup winning teams, by the way. And they couldn't even do that against Argentina. Well, yeah, Argentina have some great players like Messi, of course, he's the GOAT. Julian Alvarez, Lautaro Martinez, Enzo Fernandez, Thiago Almada, Lautaro Martinez, Nico Paz, Giuliano Simeone, Nicolás Otamendi, Emiliano Martinez, etc. Argentina are stacked with players. But I would say the weakest positions is probably the fullbacks. I mean, Molina is good, but they need they need a good backup right back. And Cowardly, yeah, they're the underdogs of this. I even predicted them to finish second in their group, which I did. I'm I'm a good predictor, but they have to face the reigning champions Argentina. Coward, of course, they have some great players like Bozinha, Kevin Pina, Livramento, Logan Costa, Ryan Mendes, Rodriguez. Yeah, I only know like five of the players. Cause yeah. But I expect this game to be also very very tight. Messi might carry Argentina again, but however they have a really good defense and a good goalkeeper, which is why I can see this game going to extra time. Which is why I think Argentina will just win this game, 2-1. I think they're gonna give Cowardly a reality check, but Cowardly, fair play to them after going this far. But I think Argentina will win this game, just slightly, 2-1. It's been a pleasure, an absolute pleasure seeing Cowardly in this tournament. It's been really good to watch, really fun to watch them play, and yeah. So, but I think Argentina will beat them 2-1. Now, moving on to our next prediction, we got Australia against Egypt. Okay, so this game is an underrated one. Here's why. Australia, so let's start off with Australia. So Australia, they got put in the group with USA, Paraguay, and Turkey. And in the first game, they were expected to lose against Turkey because they were the golden generation. But they surprisingly actually won. They won 2-0. Uh, yeah, they won 2-0 in that game, and yeah, although they had less possession and less shots than Turkey, they still managed to beat them 2-0. Well, yeah, I sort of did. Sorry, I underestimated Australia in that group because they because I thought they were the weakest team out of the whole teams, but yeah, Australia are a good team. But then they decided to talk trash against USA because USA started like saying to them like how good they were. They were easily gonna beat Australia, and Australia decided to talk back to them. But then Australia just got humbled by USA. They lost 2-0, but with Alex Freeman scoring and an own goal created by Florian Balogun. But then in the final game against Paraguay, they tied 0-0. But now they're in the round of 32, finishing second, defying all of the odds. That they are a good national team. I'm sorry, Australia. I'm sorry, y'all. I disrespected y'all, but you guys are a good national team. That you guys usually do well at World Cups. Now, Australia, they have. I don't know really much of their players, but I do know Italiano who switched from Italy to Australia. Italiano, Iracunda, uh, uh, Traore, who else? Matthew Ryan, the goalkeeper, and some others. And yeah, but now moving on to Egypt, which they are a dark horse. Maybe dark horse because in the first game they actually somehow got a solid point against Belgium. Uh, 1-1. They even scored first in that game. But then they had to play New Zealand, and they went 2-1 down after Tim Payne assisted uh, one of the New Zealand players, and they scored off a corner. But then Egypt came back and won 3-1. Yeah, but then Egypt scored again, 2 goals more, and then they won 3-1. Even Mo Salah scoring a goal, which is nice to see. And yeah, but then in the final game they somehow tied against Iran. Iran have actually been good in this tournament. I also underestimated them. Sorry, Iran, but I think you guys will qualify as a best third place team. So yeah, Egypt have a really good attack, like Omar Marmoush, Mohamed Salah, and the guy who plays in the Barcelona Youth Academy. I don't remember his name, but he is really good. And some other players who play for Al Ali, which is Egypt's best club. But this game is also very tight to predict. Egypt against Australia. Australia usually do well at World Cups. Like they reached the round of 16 in 2022 after finishing second in the group after the dark horses Denmark and Tunisia. Who do I see will win this matchup? I think I'm actually gonna go for another upset. I think I will. I'm gonna go for Australia to win. I think Australia will beat Egypt, but slightly. I think they're gonna win 2-1 Australia and eliminate Egypt from the tournament. Well, Egypt actually got a World Cup win, which is good, but Australia, I think they'll win because the Egypt concerned me after they played against Iran, and Egypt they sort of like lose possession of the ball too much. That showed in the game against Iran, Egypt, and Belgium. So I think Australia will win this game. It's gonna finish 2-1, and yeah, I think Australia will go through. Now moving on to Germany versus Paraguay. Oof, this game is gonna be so hard to predict as well. Here's why. Germany, and they in the first game they absolutely smoked Curaçao 7-1, with Kai Havertz scoring 2 goals, and yeah, uh, but massive respect to Curaçao because they scored their first ever World Cup goal against Manuel Neuer, who's the best goalkeeper in World Cup history, which is just crazy. But then Germany, then they beat Ivory Coast, but just barely after Dennis Undav, super sub, scored 2 goals, and then in the last game they lost to Ecuador, which I correctly predicted. I said Ecuador would win 1-0, but the game was actually 2-1 to Ecuador. So Ecuador will probably advance as a third place team, and Germany lost to them, but it doesn't really matter for them because they still finished first in the group. Now Paraguay, okay, Paraguay, their World Cup did not start the best because they got absolutely smoked by the United States, 4-1. That was the best performance by USA I've seen in a really long time. But then Paraguay, they bounced back to beat Turkey, but there were some concerns in that game. Well, maybe Almiron, he got a red card in that game as well. But I know they scored the earliest goal, but then they just decided to decided to sit back and play haram ball after Turkey had 32 shots against them and couldn't even score. Well, that's the only thing that concerns me. If Paraguay play like that against Germany, they might be in big trouble. But then in their next game, they drew 0-0 against Australia, and Paraguay they're through to the next round, which is good to see as well. So Paraguay, this game is actually very hard to predict, to be honest, because Paraguay they have really good defense, like players like Omar Alderete, Junior Alonso, other players like Julio Enciso, Miguel Almiron, Bobadilla, who else? Yeah, Antonio Sarabia, Diego Gomez, etc. Paraguay do have some good players, and Germany they also have some great players like Nico Schlotterbeck, Dennis Undav, Kai Havertz, Nick Woltemade, Florian Wirtz, Jamal Musiala, Felix Mecha, Manuel Neuer in goal, Nathaniel Brown. and Antonio Rudiger, Jonathan Tah. I mean, they do have a good team, but Schlotterbeck is injured because he got injured, and I don't think he'll be playing against. I don't think he's gonna be fit to play against Paraguay. So if Paraguay play like that, they played like that against Turkey. But if they play like that against Germany, they're in for a rude awakening. Which is why I think this game will also be close. I think that Germany are gonna win this game 3-1. I'm sorry, Paraguay fans, but I think Germany will win 3-1, and they'll be playing the another team. So yeah, I think Germany advances. And now moving on to France versus Sweden. This game will be highly anticipated because yeah, we got Victor Gyökeres and Alexander Isak taking on Kylian Mbappe, Michael Olise. Yeah. So starting off with France, they are one of the favorites to win this entire tournament. And yeah, France they started off against the game against Senegal. Well, the first half didn't go to plan against them. I know they were tying 0-0, but they still had to finish off their chances. But then the second half they beat Senegal after Mbappe scored. Que golazo de Mbappe. Crazy goal. Crazy goal by Mbappe, and then yeah, they won 3-1, and then they beat Iraq 3-0. Well, that game had to be cancelled due to lightning. Again, this happening again. Like, I remember like last year in the Club World Cup where games got postponed due to lightning. It's happening. It's happening again. Like in the East Coast, like where I'm living right now, it's like there was like a big storm. Yeah, there was one yesterday. So yeah, and now and then they won against Norway 4-1. Man, I want to see Mbappe versus Haaland, but Haaland didn't even come off the bench, dude. What? I don't even know what happened. But it was a great performance by France. Even Doué getting his first World Cup goal, which is good, and Dembele bagging in a hat trick. And France, they're absolutely stacked. They have players all around. They have like from Mike Maignan, uh, Theo Hernandez, Jules Koundé, Dayot Upamecano, William Saliba, eh, N'Golo Kante, Manu Kone, Warren Zaire-Emery, Ryan Cherky, Michael Olise, Dembele, Kylian Mbappe, Desiree Doué. Even their bench is stacked as well. They have players like in the bench like Marcus Thuram. Uh, of course, their bench is really stacked as well. But I can see France winning this game. But Sweden, uh, they are a very tricky side to predict. They're so unpredictable because in their first game they won 5-1, but then against Tunisia, but then they lost 5-1 to the Netherlands, which is what I don't even get this side. But then they tied 1-1 to Japan. But I and Sweden do have some good players like Yassine Yari, Alexander Isak, Victor Gyökeres, Anthony Elanga, Isaac Hien, etc. They have a really good attack that could cause problems to France's defense. But I think France's defense will handle it. But I think this game, I think France are just gonna take business of this game, and I think they're gonna take care of business. And which is why I think France will win this game 4-1. Yeah, you heard me correctly. I think France will advance to the next round and win 4-1 again against Norway. Now moving on to our next prediction. So moving on to our next game, we got Portugal taking on Croatia. Oh my god, what a game that is gonna be. I cannot wait for that game to happen. So starting off with Portugal. Oof. I'm recording this video right now as last night it was insane for me. I went to Croatia versus Ghana and then to the Fan Fest. Colombia versus Portugal. I did forget to send you some pictures, but I will do that later. So yeah, starting off with Portugal, their World Cup did not start off the best after they tied with DR Congo, but then they bounced back against Uzbekistan and beat them 5-0. Even Ronaldo scoring a brace, and Rafael Leao also getting on the score sheet as well. But then last night they tied to Colombia 0-0, and they finished second in the group. But Croatia now, yeah, they have a good team, and they finished second in their group, just behind England because they lost in the first game. They lost 4-2 to England. Pff, what a game that was! England Croatia game of the group stage so far. But then the next game they bounced back against Panama and beat them 2-1. And then in the next game, the game where I was actually at, by the way, the vlog is in the channel. So yeah, Croatia versus Ghana, I was there. Uh, Croatia won. Croatia won 2-1. Well, that was a great game. Both teams had great chances, and of course, both teams deserved to score. And yeah, both teams played really well. Croatia and Ghana. That was a great game to watch. And now, yeah, Croatia are in the round of 32, and now they're playing Portugal. Now, Portugal, they have a really good team, containing the likes of the man himself, Cristiano Ronaldo, João Neves, Vitinha, Nuno Mendes, Pedro Neto, Rafael Leao, Bruno Fernandes, João Cancelo, Diego Costa, etc. They have a good team, Portugal, and they could beat Croatia. And Croatia also have some great players, like of course the man himself, Luka Modric, Ante Budimir, Martin Baturina, Petar Musa, who else? Josko Gvardiol, Luka Vuskovic, really great young prospect coming up. Also some other players like yeah, some other players like Pasalic, he even scored yesterday, and Petar Sucic, that I even saw him score yesterday. So for my prediction, Croatia they woke up in the game against Ghana. They played really well, but I just feel like the second half died down a bit. But Portugal, they also didn't play that well against Colombia yesterday. Well, they did get their chances, but they just needed to work on their finishing, which is why I think this game is also gonna be very, very tight. I can also see this game going to penalties. I think this game is gonna finish 1-1, and it's gonna go to penalties. And who will win on penalties? Portugal are gonna win on penalties, and sadly for Croatia to get knocked out, I just think Portugal will go through. Sorry, Croatia fans. Well, okay, now moving on to our next game, we got Spain against Austria. Now, this game will be played in California, in Los Angeles, in the SoFi Stadium. Starting off with Spain, which they're also one of the favorites to win this entire competition, and here's why. So, they started off with it wasn't the best because they dominated against Cabo Verde, but they couldn't find a way to score against the man himself, Vozinha, 40 years old. Turned out to be one of the best goalkeepers in the World Cup so far, and yeah, so yeah, and then Spain, they bounced back against against Saudi Arabia. Even Lamine Yamal getting his first World Cup goal, which is nice to see. One of my favorite players, Lamine Yamal. Of course, he plays for Barca. And yeah, and then they beat Uruguay 1-0 to Uruguay to get knocked out of the World Cup. Yeah, it's a shame for Uruguay, really. Shame for them that they got knocked out of the World Cup. But that game was an absolute snooze fest. Let's be honest. Alex Baena was like the only one who was playing well. Lamine Yamal, they were like everyone was on him. Like almost all the Uruguay defenders were on him. Well, but that wasn't the case. The sad part in that game was Manuel Huerta getting injured, which was sad to see. Well, it looks like a serious injury in my opinion, and I really feel bad for him. After the game, he was seen in a wheelchair, which is sad. So yes, do wish for Huerta a speedy recovery, and yeah. So this game and Austria aren't bad either. I know they beat Jordan in the first opening game, 1-0, and then they lost to Argentina 2-0. But of course, Messi, the man, the GOAT, scored 2 goals there, and then yeah, and then in their last game for Austria, they had a thriller 3-3 tie. Well, of course, I didn't watch that game because yeah, I was absolutely tired after yesterday. Like after the game, I was like so tired. Like I fell asleep so fast. I was like so tired. What a day it was yesterday. I did watch part of the Argentina game, so I know they beat Jordan 3-0 and 3-1, and Messi, he's just the GOAT, man. And also fair play to Jordan for being the only team to score against Argentina so far, and yeah. So Austria, they have a good team. They have players like Marcel Savitzer, Konrad Leimer, Marko Arnautovic, Carney Chukwuemeka, David Alaba, etc. They have some good players to play for average teams, for some decent teams, and yeah. But Spain are absolutely stacked. They have players like Unai Simon, Marco Correa, Pau Cuarsi, Améric Laporte, Marcos Llorente, Pedri, Rodri, Gavi, Fabian Ruiz, Lamine Yamal, of course, Mikel Oyarzabal, Ferran Torres, Nico Williams, Alex Baena. I can go on and on, but they just have a stacked team. And Spain, I think they could beat Austria here. I think, yeah, which is why I think Spain will win against Austria 2-0, and sadly for the Austrians, they will get knocked out. So I think Spain will go through. Now moving on to our next game. Well, this game is actually so intense to predict. We got Mexico playing in the Azteca against Ecuador. Now this game is very, very tough to predict. Well, before I would have said Ecuador would go through, but now I'm starting to doubt on them a little bit. So yeah, let's start off with Mexico, because in their opening game, they beat South Africa 2-0, as I previously mentioned. But then they didn't play so well against South Korea. Well, that game was an absolute snooze fest. It was hard for me to keep my eyes open. But later they did find the back of the net. Well, it wasn't a pretty goal. It wasn't a pretty goal, to be honest. And yeah, Luis Romo scored. But then in the next game against Czechia, I was hesitating if I wanted to watch the game or not, because the night before I was watching a video of my favorite YouTuber Nabuto about his predictions, and he like told us he highly recommended not to watch that game, because Mexico were just gonna play really defensive. But I decided to watch the game, and that game was good. 3-0, Julian Quiñones scoring again, and yeah. And now moving on to Ecuador. Well, they are sort of in a difficult situation right now. It's very hard to trust them right now, because in the first game against Ivory Coast, oof, what a game that was. That was a really good game to watch. I should have gone to that game in Philadelphia. Really close, but that game was really close. But Ivory Coast did convert the chances. Amad Diallo scored in the last minute to give them a victory, but Ecuador needed a response fast. But then in the next game against Curaçao, they failed to beat Curaçao after Curaçao's goalkeeper turned into a brick wall. Damn. That goalkeeper is absolutely insane. Yeah, but massive respect to Curaçao by getting a point against Ecuador and scoring a goal against Germany, which is really respectful to them. But then they just had to beat Germany if they want to finish as one of the best third place teams, and that's exactly what I did. I predicted Ecuador to win against Germany 1-0, but the game was actually 2-1 to Ecuador. Won the game. One of the upsets of the tournament so far, Ecuador winning against Germany, and I correctly predicted that. Okay, now moving on. Yeah, we already talked about Mexico. Now Ecuador, they probably have the best defense in the entire tournament. Players like Joel Ordóñez, William Pacho, Estupiñán, Incapie, Ener Valencia, Moisés Caicedo, Nelson Angulo, etc. Nelson Angulo is really good, who plays for Sunderland. And moving on to Mexico's players, they have players like Julian Quiñones. He was actually born in Colombia, by the way. Oh my god. We imagine if we had Julian Quiñones, that would have been great. Okay, who else? Raúl Jiménez, Luis Romo, Guillermo Ochoa, Chavis, with etc. Cesar Montes, Gilberto Mora, etc. They have some great young prospects like Gilberto Mora that could beat Ecuador, but Ecuador, this is the tough thing. Going to the Azteca in Mexico is a really hard task. 90 minutes at the Azteca is sort of like in the Bernabeu, but this game is really hard to predict. Ecuador's defense could shut down Mexico's attack, Which is why I see this game finishing. Just it will go to extra time. I think Mexico will win this game 1-0. Just. And I think Mexico will win this game. Going to the Azteca is a really hard task, which is why I see Mexico winning this game 1-0. So yeah. Now let's move on to our next game where we got DR Congo taking on England. Now what a game this is gonna be. I mean, DR Congo, they are an underdog, and England, of course, they have a stacked team. England, let's start off with England. They topped their group, consisting of the likes of Croatia, Ghana, and Panama. In the first game against Croatia, I previously mentioned that was game of the tournament so far. But then they failed to beat Ghana after Ghana were playing Park the Bus for technically the entire 90 minutes, and England failed to score. But then England beat Panama. Well, I was at the stadium. Not that game, Croatia versus Ghana, and the announcer was like, England scored, and they beat Ghana 2-0 after Harry Kane and Bellingham scored. Well, that was, I didn't see the highlights, but I just think England played well in that game. So, okay, now we're moving on to DR Congo. So starting off, massive respect to them after they got a point against Portugal, and then they lost to Colombia 1-0. But then they beat Uzbekistan 3-1. They were also announcing that in the fan zone where I was watching Colombia versus Portugal. They were announcing those goals by Uzbekistan and DR Congo. But then, England, starting off with England, they have a stacked team, which had the likes of Jordan Pickford, Elliot Anderson, Ezri Konsa, Mark Gay, Nico O'Reilly, Reece James, Declan Rice, Anthony Gordon, Marcus Rashford, Harry Kane, Bukayo Saka, Morgan Rogers, Jude Bellingham, etc. Also, Noni Madueke. And DR Congo, they have a really good attack and really good defense. That's why it's hard to score against them. They only conceded 3 goals in those entire 3 games they played. So yeah, they have great players in the back like Aaron Wan-Bissaka, Axel Tuanzebe, who else? Cedric Bakambu, Yohan Wissa. Yeah, they have some good players, some underrated players, and yeah, this game I can honestly see England giving DR Congo a reality check. But England, they struggle against Ghana, but I do see this game being close, which is why I think England will take care of business and win against DR Congo 2-0. That's my prediction. Okay, so it's okay. Now moving on to our next game where we got Algeria taking on Switzerland. So starting off with Switzerland, they their World Cup did not start off the best after they tied to Qatar 1-1, where it could have been an easy win for them, but they tied. But massive respect to Qatar for getting a point, for getting their first ever World Cup point. But then they actually redeemed themselves after that, and then they beat Bosnia 4-1, which was a great performance by them. But then against Canada, they won 2-1, which I correctly predicted as well. Correctly predicted the score as a 2-1 to Switzerland, and yeah. So yeah, and now Algeria, their World Cup did not start off the best because they lost 3-0 to Argentina after Messi. He's just the GOAT, man. He scored a hat-trick against Algeria, but then Algeria bounced back against Jordan and beat them 2-1, and then they tied it 3-3 against Austria, which could have been the game of the tournament. I'll watch the highlights after I'm done recording this video. Well, and yeah, Algeria, they have some good players like El Hadj Moussa, Riyad Mahrez, Mohamed Amouda, Ben Sebaini, Ismail Ben Nasser, etc. They have some good players. Even Zidane's son, Lucas Zidane, playing in goal, who's good for the national team. Yeah, and Switzerland they have some great young talent like Johan Manzambi. He's been an absolute prospect, one of the biggest wonder kids so far. The World Cup. Granit Xhaka, Brel Mbolo, Ruben Vargas, Noah Okafor, Manuel Akanji, Ricardo Rodriguez, Gregor Kobel. Yeah, the Swiss have a good team, and I think they can beat Algeria in this game, which I think they're gonna take care of business and beat Algeria 3-1. Yeah, 3-1. And my final prediction for that. Sorry, Algeria, but I think Switzerland are just a better team. Okay. Now, moving on to another game. We got Colombia, my country, and we're taking on Ghana. Now, we cannot underestimate Ghana at all. They have our former manager, Carlos Queiroz, who used to coach us, and he didn't do that well, but now he just saved the Ghana because they used to be in a crisis 1 year ago after they failed to qualify to AFCON, but now they're in a good state right now. Starting off, they play super defensive. They play Harambal. They played Harambal in the game against Panama. They played super defensive, but then in the last minute they just went out on a counter attack and scored. That's what worries me against Ghana. They have like electric players like Antoine Semenyo, Abdul Fattah, Gideon Mensah, Jordan Ayew, Andre Ayew. Yeah, they have some electric attackers and some also really good midfield that contest with Thomas Partey. Yeah, and also they have some electric attackers as well, like Iñaki Williams as well. That's what worries me about Ghana. That they play super defensive, but then in the last few minutes they counter attack you and score. You saw that in the game against Panama. But then they tied 0-0 against England, which they had a really good defense. But then again, in the game against Croatia, of course they were already qualified, but Croatia took it really seriously against them. But then Ghana did play better in the second half, but at 2-1, then Ghana, that's the thing that scares me about Ghana, that they have a good team, and Carlos Queiroz does know some of our players. Yeah, but yeah, that's the thing that worries me, that he could outsmart us. So yeah, now let's go to Colombia, my country. Vamos, hay que ganarle a Ghana, por favor. So in the first game against Uzbekistan, nos fue muy bien. I mean, it was really good for us because I think that was a great performance from us. Even Munoz getting on the score sheet, we beat them 3-1, and Luis Diaz played really well that game. And then in the next game, we played DR Congo, and we beat them 1-0 thanks to a goal from Munoz. And in the final game against Portugal, we tied 0-0, but we deserved to win, man. We deserved to win that game. We had way more chances. We had more chances than Portugal, and we just shut them down brilliantly. But then, but I think the goal from Davinson Sanchez, that was not offside. Okay. Let's see. His finger was just offside. That is just so annoying. That his toe was offside. Just his toe. But when they showed the replay, it was like, oh my god! I was like, his toe. That's so annoying. But if the referee checked VAR, I think he would have given a goal, and we could have beaten Portugal. But it is what it is. I'm happy that we got a point against Portugal, and yeah. So yeah, I think I think we do have a good team. We have a really good team. This is one of the best teams we've had in years. After that 2022 World Cup disaster, no, that's one of the worst Colombian sides I've ever seen in a really long time. But then now we are back, and we've qualified to the round of 32, and we're playing Ghana. This game will be very, very tough. Okay, I know we have great players like Luis Diaz, James Rodriguez, Daniel Munoz, Gustavo Puerta. Gustavo Puerta's been a wonder kid so far at the World Cup, 22 years, and he's been a great revelación. That's how we say it in Spanish. Revelación. I don't know how to say it in English, but yeah, revelación, revelation. Also players like Joan Mojica, Davinson Sanchez. Davinson Sanchez seems like locks down in that defense. He's absolutely certain to start in every single game. Luis Suarez, no, not the Uruguayan one, or Colombian Luis Suarez. Richard Rios, Jefferson Lerma, John Lucumí, Camilo Vargas. Yeah, I think we do have a good team. And yeah, but this game against Ghana will be tough. It will be tough. Which is why I think this game we're just gonna win. I'm confident we can win. I'm confident we can win, but we gotta watch out with Ghana. They have a good team. Which is why I think we're gonna barely win this game. 2-1. We gotta advance. We gotta advance. So yeah. Okay, now moving on to our that's my prediction. 2-1. Sorry, Ghana fans, but I just think we're gonna win. Okay, now moving on to our final prediction. Belgium against Senegal. Okay, this is a really tight game to predict. Both teams are the same because Belgium started off like they tied 1-1 to Egypt in Seattle in their first game. The Belgium they dropped points to Iran and they were 406 minutes without a World Cup goal for Belgium because Belgium's goal against Egypt was an own goal. But then they absolutely destroyed New Zealand 5-1, even with Leandro Trossard playing a huge role in that game. Belgium, they have good players like Jeremy Doku, Romelu Lukaku, Leandro Trossard, Kevin De Bruyne, Zeno De Bast, Thibaut Courtois, Yuri Tillemans, etc. Belgium have a good team, but they have to learn how to finish more. Because you saw that game in the game against Iran and Egypt. But in the game against New Zealand, they took their chances and scored well. And now Senegal, they have a good team. I don't think I'll put in the group of death. But first they lost 3-1 to France. Then they lost 3-2 to Norway. I thought Senegal would win that game. Then the final game against Iraq, they of course had to win and destroyed Iraq 5-0. Well, and Senegal, they have a good team with players like Sadio Mane, Iliman Ndiaye, Pape Matar Sarr, Ismail Assar, Pape Gueye, Boulaye Dia, Nicolas Jackson, Ibrahima Mbaye. Yeah, they have a good team. Also players like Edouard Mendy and El Hadji Malik Diouf. The Senegalese have a good team and they're the AFCON champions because Morocco won it. But yeah, do I see Senegal causing an upset against Belgium? Because Belgium, they need to work on their finishing, man. They really do. But Senegal do know how to finish with good players up top, like Sadio Mane and Nicolas Jackson. Which is why I'm gonna go for an upset. I will go for an upset here. I think Senegal are gonna win this game 3-2. And yeah, I think that game, Senegal will win and advance to the next round. I want to see an upset, man. I really do want to see an upset. So yeah, those are my final predictions. Let me know what you're thinking about them in the comments. And yeah, we'll see you for the round of 16 predictions.